Hi everyone, welcome to our next lesson. And in this lesson, what we will be discussing is variables in JavaScript. Now, you might ask yourself, what is a variable? A variable is basically a container or a box. Think of it like a box where you can either put in a number or store in a number or a sum or a string that we use as part of a sentence. Okay, but one special thing about variables is that the content inside it can change. So how do we do that? So the first thing that we're going to do in our JS folder, we're just going to create a new file, 01, called variables. If I can spell .js. All right, so we got our variables file there. So we obviously have to link this variable file in our index file, as you can remember from the previous episode. So script with the source tag, src, and we're going to link to the JS file with 01 variables. All right, so we must not forget to use our modern syntax, the defer method. We don't need it right now, but just to get used to using it, because we're not going to depend on any HTML in this one. We're just going to work in the JavaScript file. Okay, so let's open our JavaScript right there, and I'm just going to open live server as well. So right click in our index and open with live server, or you can press the go live button at the bottom right there. Right, so we're just going to, in that file, we're just going to press F12 to open the developer tools, because we're going to use them in a second. All right, so how we declare variables? To use a variable, first you have to create it or declare the variable. To do this, we use two types of keywords. We use the var or the let. But we have another one, the constant as well, but we're going to discuss that a little bit later in the video. So let's do that. So the first one we're going to use is the var keyword. This is the oldest syntax when JavaScript was created, because this was the only keyword that we had to declare variables. So var, and I'm just going to do first name. So voila, and we declare it. Easy peasy. And the next one, we're just going to do last name. All right. So basically what we have done now is we declared two values. We declared first name and we declared last name. All right. So you might ask now, how do we assign a value to first name and to last name? All right. It's quite easy. So the first thing that we can do is we initialize a variable. So this is called initialize. So we call first name and we use the equal operator or the equal sign, and we assign the value of John, semicolon at the end. So that means you kind of finish the variable. So basically the same like that. So always at the end you use the semicolon. It will work without it, but it's good practice to kind of use it at the end so that you can read the code more neatly, so that you know where the things end and where it begins. The new one begins. So last name equals to Doe. Right? So what we have done now is we initialized first name and we initialize last name. So basically in our browser, what we can do now is we can go to first name. As you can see, let me make it a bit bigger for you guys to see. So as you can see, we got John right there. So if I change this to Peter, save that, and to first name, as you can see, it returns the value of Peter. How cool is that? All right, so the next one we can do is the last name, and you can see it returns the value of Doe. All right, So let's use the other keyword, the modern keyword that we have to declare variables. It's called let. So I'm just going to let age. I'm just going to declare it quickly. So I declared age. I'm just going to assign age value to 80 years old. All right, so if we go here and we say age, and it returns the value of 80. Now, you can also declare and initialize values in the same line. So how we do that? Let's delete this. Now let me keep it there for you guys. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to comment them out so that the browser don't read them. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to let first name, let me just call this, let name, and first name equal to John. So basically what we can do now is we declared the whole value and initialized it with the equal sign to the variable of John. So let's just call first name. As you can see, it returns the value of John. Very, very, very cool. Now the reason why I've showed you the var keyword, and the let keyword, as I said earlier, just let me do that. As I said, this is when JavaScript first was created. This was the only keyword that we had. We only had the var to declare variables and even to assign constants to it. And this caused some major issues or confusions and security issues. All right. So the modern syntax to use is let. But this, I just want you guys to know that it is there. So when you see some JavaScript code using the var keyword, you're not going to get confused and think, okay, what is this? All right. But you will know what it is there for. It's basically the old way to assign variables. So what is the difference between the two? All right. Why do you have two? The var keyword, in most cases, it works fine. As I said previously, it caused some issues and confusions. And I will get to that just in a sec. The let keyword was created with modern JavaScript versions, a new keyword that creates variables that works differently than var, fixing the issues in the process. So basically what it does, let just kind of solve problems that we had with var. Okay, so as far as possible, as humanly possible, if I can say so, don't use the keyword var. You will use the two keywords let and const. Now we're going to get to const in a second, but you're going to need these two keywords. All right. So for example, let me make an example between var and let. So we got var. We're going to declare a value of first name again. Quite easy. So that's why I'm using it the whole time. First name and last name. John. Now the problem what we can do, we can declare another first name and call it Peter. Now this works. It doesn't give you error or anything like that, because now you declare two variables with the same. And you're not going to get an error in the browser. Now, as you can see, that will cause some issues in your code, as you can see. But if we use the let keyword, immediately our browser will give us an error. How cool is that? So immediately the browser will let you know, listen, you already declared the variable in line 11. As you can see there, line 11, and there is line 11. We already declared it. But if we use the var keyword, nothing happens. So as you can see, you will get some errors in your code, unexpected, but expected. Okay. So the best way to go forward using modern syntax, we only use the let keyword and the const keyword. Okay. Very, very cool. Let me just keep this. Keep this for you guys. Let me just do this. And let me copy this one. I'm just going to comment them out so that you guys can have it. This. Right. So, let me just, because we're going to get the error there, I'm just going to comment it out so that you guys can have it for reference. All right. So the next one is, how do we update a variable? Okay, so let's declare first name. All right, so let's first name. Let's assign, no, let's not assign it to anything. All right, so we declared it. Let's initialize it. So first name equals to Ben. All right, so if we go to our browser and we type in first name, it will give us Ben. All right, so let's update Ben. So we don't want it to be Ben anymore. We want it to be, let's say John again. let's call it John. All right. So, right. So if we do that again, you can see now it changed to John. And if we update it again, right. So if we go here and we type in first name again and we change it to James. All right. So let's go to first name. As you can see, it updated that variable to James. As you can remember from the previous episode, the browser load and parsed it from top to bottom. Okay, very cool. So they kind of gives you consistency so that you know how to run your code and how to work with your code. Now bring us to a very important part of our lesson. There's certain rules. Let me just refresh this. There's certain rules that you should follow to declare variables, right? So you can name it whatever you want, but there is certain rules that you have to follow, right? The first rule is that you should not use any other character that may cause errors or hard to understand for others to read. What am I saying? So basically, if I say let, all right, so I cannot use, let's say, for instance, acrylic. What I meant to say, Cyrillic. Basically, it's Russian language, Russian characters for the language. We don't want to use that. Not basically Russian, basically Slavic. I mean, because I know somebody's going to bite my head off for saying that, but for someone that might not understand, I just wanted to show that. Or you use Chinese characters, symbols, as part of your characters. So the best thing to use is only to use Latin characters, basically anything, numbers. Let me just do this. Let me just do a comment. Right, so let me just do that. Right, so basically numbers from 0 to 9, all that is fine, or alphabetic numbers from small a to z, or capitalized from, say, z to a to z. All right, so this is the ones that's acceptable from any numbers from 0 to 9, alpha numbers from A to Z, capitalized and small ones, right? So the next part, so basically, like I've been doing right now, No funny characters or stuff like that. I can name it whatever I want. I just wanted to remove the arrow there. So, okay. The next thing is don't use underscores at the start of a variable. So basically, if I do this, let cars equal to 4. Okay. This is not good. So don't put a underscore. Now the reason for that is because there's certain keywords in JavaScript that it is solely for it, and it might confuse some people because one of the keywords is called the construct keyword. Now it uses the underscore, okay, and it will cause some errors. Okay, don't use numbers at the start of a variable. Let me just do this. Don't. Okay, so that. So let me comment this. Let me copy this one down. Comment. Right. So don't use numbers. So let's say 4 cars. Don't use that. That will cause some errors. Okay. The next one. Let me copy it down again. All right. The next one is to use lower camel case, basically, to declare a variable. So if we start here, we're not going to use the Pascal case, basically. This Pascal case. Don't use this to declare variables. Best thing to do is to, if you've got 2 words, use the lower case. All right, and the next thing that we're going to do, don't do that. So let's say you've got 3 words. So let's say let this long weekend. Right. So this is the 3 words that you have that you can assign. It says Saturday. I'm just doing an example. Okay. So this is a long keyword, but basically what we're going to do now is the right way to do it. Let me copy it, paste it down here. Here, you don't do this, or you don't put hyphens in between. Don't do that. So instead, what we do is we use the lowercase, so lowercase there, and the subsequent letters we capitalize. Like that. So basically this, it's going to be lowercase, and the subsequent ones we capitalize. Okay, so that's how we do that. Also, another thing is if you assign a variable, say let to make some gibberish, assign to let's say surname or Bradley. Okay. Now, the problem is, if someone is going to come and look at your code, they're going to be like, what is this? All right, so you don't know what this is because you just want to use whatever you want to type. This will work, but the problem is someone that's reading your code will not understand what it is. So the best thing, if it's a surname, put in last. Okay. So make it descriptive. And intuitive, so when people see it, oh, they're going to be like, okay, this is the surname or something like that. All right, but also don't do this as well. So let me just close this one. So don't, is the same as I said before, don't do single letters because this can mean anything to someone. All right, so to you, H might mean a hound. To someone else, H might mean something completely different. So I'm just going to say red. So if someone comes and to read, what is H? What does it mean? So don't use single characters. Rather use a descriptive name to describe your variable. Okay. And also don't. So if you're going to assign a value, so there's certain words that is solely for JavaScript use. There's a complete list, but let's say the one of them is don't use var as a keyword, because even my editor reads it as something completely different. Or functions, that also won't work. Okay, so my IDE immediately gives me an error. Or for all those kind of things, it will create errors. So rather use descriptive names and not reserved names. Okay, quite easy. All right, let's continue because I'm hammering this point too much. All right, the next one that we're going to have different variable types. All right, so what kind of variable types do we have? We have numbers. All right, it's one variable, so a number is basically like this. So let age equals to 80. Now with JavaScript, like all other languages, we don't have to. Well, let me explain like this. JavaScript is basically a dynamically typed language, which means, unlike with some other languages like PHP and Python and all those kinds, we don't have to specify the type of variable that we basically contain. So basically, if we look at this right now, a number we don't put in between quotes. But let's say I'm declaring a PHP variable. Basically, what I will do is I would basically do it like this, public. Obviously, I'm not going to pick up the string, but I'm just going to say public string equals to John Doe. Okay, so basically, if I'm inside a function, that's basically how I declare a variable, saying that this will be a string, or this will be a Boolean, or this will be a number. But in JavaScript, we don't have to do that because it's dynamically typed. So basically, when we declare numbers, we just use that. And there's different types of numbers. We got normal numbers, which in JavaScript we call whole numbers, which is called integers. So let me just do this. Let me just say we got whole numbers. And let me just integers. Right, so we got an integer, a whole number, basically as we had there. And then the next one that we have is called decimal numbers. Let me just use the float numbers, floats basically, and it's called decimal number. So how does that look like? So if that's a whole number, and I redeclared this will give me an error. So let me delete this. We got whole numbers, and then we got, let me just call this one price, just to not have an issue, of 2412.66 or 24.95. Right, so these numbers are called floats in JavaScript, or in programming language. Basically means it's decimal numbers, and then we got whole numbers, which is integers, and it's called, as you know, normal integers. Okay. All right, let me comment this as well. Let me just do this. All right, the next one that we have is called strings. All right, in strings, that is quite easy. So let first name equals to John, as we used it before. Now, a string can be declared with, let's see, I already declared it here. I'm going to comment that so it doesn't give us an error at the bottom. Nice. All right, so basically a string can either be in single quotes or double quotes. Now, the thing that I want to tell you is if you use single quotes, okay, out your application, use single quotes. But there's an advantage of using double quotes or template strings, but I will get to that in a bit later. But the thing is, what you do here is, let's say we got single quotes. Now, what we can do is John or what we can do is say let hello, because you don't have to use one word in it. So let hello equals to good morning. All right, so we declare that variable and let's say hello. All right, so I return the value good morning, sir. All right, very, very cool. So that is strings. All right, the next one that we have, let me just comment this so that you guys can see it there. Next one that we have is called Booleans. Booleans. So Booleans are true or false values. They can have only those two. So let me just say let this is a bit stupid, but let me use it. Lights on equals to true. Yeah. So basically, if I go into my browser and if I type in lights on, nope, it's wrong. There. Lights on, it will return me the value of true. And if I say false, now this is just for functionality and stuff like that, it will tell me a value of false. Very, very good. Right, that is Booleans. It returns a value of true or false. Now, basically, if I do this, let 4b is less than 2. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to declare numbers equals to 4 less than 2. So what do you guys expect to happen now? So if we type in numbers, it will give me the Boolean value of false. Why? Because 4 is not less than 2. But if we do the like this, and let's try numbers again, and we get the value of true. As you can see, this return a Boolean value. You're going to get very comfortable with using them as we're going forward in this course. So for now, let's go on to the next one. The next one is called arrays. Ooh, you're going to use this a lot in your coding career. Right? An array is a single object that contains multiple values and is enclosed with square brackets and separated by commas. So let's do this. So let cars equal to, so basically square brackets, Ford, Mazda, Yoda. Right, so basically an array is, like I said, you open it with a square bracket. You've got your values in between there, that's separated by comma. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 strings. So in the next one, we can just say numbers. Instead of strings, we just have numbers like 5, 6, 7, and the last number that we have is 8. All right, and we close it off with a semicolon. Now, the thing is that you might ask now, all right, so how do we get a single value out of our array right there? So let's just quickly go to the browser and we type in cars. It will actually show us, it will return an array with the value of Ford, Mazda, Kia, and Toyota. Reverse those two, and it'll give us a length of 4. Now you might wonder, okay, but the browser already showed what I'm going to say actually next. So the thing is, the value what we're going to do is we're going to say cars dot number 2. Okay, so we choose cars number 2, and let's do this inside the browser, cars 2. So it returns Toyota right there. Now you might think, but that is number not number 2. This is number 2. Now, an array is indexed from 0 to whatever number of items in there. So it will always start with a 0. So as you can see, if we go to 0, it will return Ford. And if we go to number 3, it will return Kia. If we go to number 4, it will return basically nothing, because there is nothing in the array. But if I add something else, add something there, refresh the browser, and do cars again. Saved it. Nope, it's not saved yet. Now it's saved. Refresh cars. So you will see it will return 5 items. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright. But on the position number 4, it returns the something. Alright, so let's delete this. We only return that 4. Let me do cars again. Alright. So in order to index them, you just do your square brackets and the index number that you want your item selected. Okay, so if we go to the numbers one, it also returns an array, as you can see, and we want to choose the number on the, we will choose one to choose number 6, so we choose 1, and it will return the 6. Okay, very cool. All right, so the next one that we have in our list is called objects. There's methods that you can use on your arrays actually to put something into an array and stuff like that, but we're going to get that in a bit later, as it will be a topic on its own. Right, the next thing is objects. An object is a structure of code that models a real-life object. That you can have a simple object like a box, like we discussed earlier. It's got a width, it's got a height, and it's got a length. All right, all that kind of information. And the next one, we can actually represent a real person, eyes, name, height, language, all the other things that goes with it. So how do we declare a variable? So in our instance, we're just going to say let car equals to. Now, object is declared with the curly braces. All right, and we're going to declare the name of the car. Let me use this. No, just name equals to what can we call it? Let's just use Ford again. Then we separate it, and then we're going to give it a color of red, and then we're going to, let's just do that. So you can obviously add more. So if we kind of go into our browser, all right, so we go into our browser and we type in car, you will see it will return an object. All right, so how do we access the items in our object? So we can just use the dot notation and we put the name. As you can see, it will return Ford, and if we do the color, it will return red. Very, very cool. All right, so that is an object. All right, so this brings us to the last part of our video. This one, what we're going to do is we're going to discuss this little word right there. Months in year. Okay, and we know it is 12. All right. So the reason why we assign a constant is because we know months in a year will always be 12. It will not be 13, it will not be 14 or 15 or 3 or 4. It will always be 12. Many programming languages have this concept of a constant, a value that once it's declared, that cannot be changed. There are many reasons why we want to do this. For security reasons, for debugging purposes, and if you kind of want to make sure that the code works. Okay, constant work exactly the same as the let. So basically, if on let, like we used before, except with const keywords, the values, basically the month's value. Let's try this. Let's say months in a year, we're trying to assign a value of 13. Now, as you can see, it will give us an error immediately because the const keyword cannot be changed. But if we use the let keyword, we don't get that error. So months in a year will change to 13. And you don't want this to happen because you know it will only and always be 12. So for that, we use the const keyword, and if you try to adjust it later, you will get an error. So it can provide some consistency, that's why the word is constant, in your code. All right, thank you guys for watching. I know it was a long video, but I kind of want to code it in a way or teach it in a way that it will be like a normal lesson that you would even get in the class. So everything, so you can type the things that you want to do. Pause the video. Otherwise, I will just skimp over the information, and I know you're going to need it later. So I rather want to do the longer videos so that you guys can have the information available. And please make notes. Come back to the video. If you don't understand something, ask it in the comment section. And thank you guys for watching. Like the video if you like it. Dislike the video if you dislike it, and please give me some constructive feedback at the bottom. Right. Thank you guys, and in the next video we'll discuss numbers and operators. Thank you guys for watching, and see you there. Goodbye.